Welcome back to Adventure Co Gaming. My name is AJ. I'm here with Ryan. This is our first podcast in quite a while. We get to talk about a bunch of fun stuff today. Quite a lot, actually. All the way from we have some Dusk Till Dawn spoilers, and we have some Briars not going away, and we have some Oldhams are going away, among a couple other things. Lots to catch up on. It's been a while since we've gotten to do this. But Ryan, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm looking at all these Dusk Till Dawn cards, and I'm very excited for this next set. You know, we definitely knew we were going to start getting some more light and dark support, but we definitely see that we're going to get a little bit more than that for even some of the regular heroes we all know and love. So, very excited to see where it goes from here.
I just want to say I'm super excited for Prism. I don't care if it's terrible. Prism was it was probably like my first like love in this game. Like honestly, like I we've been playing since the start, and I really
Yeah,
liked
Dorynthia's crying right now
I liked
hearing you say
I
that.
liked Dory, but I never like connected with Dory's gameplay. I liked a lot of her aesthetics, but a lot of her gameplay was just it was okay. It was pretty fun, but I really liked when Prism came out and the way Illusionist played and the whole Angel aesthetic. I was digging it. And then they took
Illusionist
her
is
away.
definitely on the same level of what's it called, Wizard, in terms of how set aside its gameplay was from the other classes.
Hmm.
So I could definitely see how it could draw a lot of people in with just the way itself, like the way its game plan works. Anyway,
Right, and I really enjoyed like they hit the flavor like on the head, right? So like all the attacks had phantasm, so like if you were strong enough or you're strong enough of mind or whatever, so 6 attack or higher, block with it, it pops it, so the illusion disappears, dissipates. And then Spectra, as controversial as that mechanic is, which I actually think Spectra is fine. If anything's the problem, it was probably Luminaris. But that being said, uh, it was a very cool mechanic where it was like you have to like I always think of like an animation or something like that, like a movie, like where there's some kind of sorcerer like conjuring something that isn't real, and then there's like the character that like swings at it and it like whooshes away. But like they wasted that attack, right? Like whooshing it away, and that's kind of like what Spectre like fulfilled. And like it also fulfilled the other side of it too, where if you left it alone, like the illusions kind of take over. And so they become like unbearable, like there's too many, and that's kind of like Luminar's like pinging you for one until you die.
yeah,
um,
no, it definitely was on point with its theme, much like a lot of the theming around characters in this game that we've seen so far. I
that's so
think
good.
Flesh and Blood has done a really good job with their design space and making the game feel like the characters' mechanics kind of rolled into the archetype's playstyle or even just the specific character's playstyle.
I just think like Spectra on its own, without Luminaris, I think what it's gonna do is you're still gonna be able to get out auras that are good. But it'll still be an investment for your opponent to kill them. But leaving them alone doesn't feel as punishing. So you're gonna be able to pick and choose. Like, okay, this one, like a passing mirage. If you're playing anything that's relying on popping her attacks, you know to kill passing mirage. But if you're playing something that is already popping her attacks and they play the +2 one, um, which is escaping me right now, but they play the one where her first illusionist attack card is +2.
Yeah, it's the one with the lion
Yeah, yeah.
illusion card.
Passing
I completely
Mirage.
forgot what that was called too.
It'll come back to me. But anyway, if you're playing that one, uh, but you're already like, well, I'm gonna pop them anyway, so I can leave that one probably alone for a while until it gets to be, as long as they don't become weapons, right? That was the issue, was like her, not only were they good auras, but they also became Kodachis.
I
uh,
disagree just to a small extent. Now, it became a little more overwhelming when there was both the yellow and the blue ones, but we still have both of those available to this new Prism, or even if it's a whole separate future
oh,
illusionist as well. So Spectra is still strong, and I say that only because it's like if you're one of the classes that only gets one attack per turn, but you do need to take that time to destroy it, like you're leaving the Prism or illusionist with a full hand, while you've basically just kind of like annoyed them by comparison.
no, I mean, well, the thing I'm saying is like, you're not, first of all, most Guardians are not playing no go again cards at all, right? They're still playing Zealous Belting, they're playing uh, Rouse the Ancients. They're playing E strikes. There's still ways to attack multiple times, even with a Guardian.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
and what I'm saying is that you can still send an attack at the Prism and then kill an aura. I'm not saying leave them forever, um, or ignore them completely. What I am saying is there are turns where you'll say like, all right, that one has to go. And a lot of times, what we're also seeing is that like I don't know how good like basically if you're playing Guardian, you're probably gonna be able to block a lot of her attacks, and now she doesn't have or pop a lot of her attacks, even two at a time. So like right, they're gonna play one, or even like you'll let the first one hit or whichever. Like you pick and choose which ones are more deadly. If you have two pops in hand and you pop two, and you move on. The issue was you could have that game plan, right? You could I'm gonna pop two of her attacks, we're gonna move on, and then I'm gonna kill an aura. The issue was so there neither person got attacks through, right?
Yeah.
But the issue was before, if you did that, now you're also getting hit with 1,000 Kodachis, right?
Yeah.
So I just think that the new Prism probably is not as oppressive in that way. Now, she does
No, no, of
something
course.
that's good because I guess we'll have the Prism on the screen because even though we don't have the effect yet, she only has 16 life, which I assume is going to be 32 for the adult. So she does something that they warranted less life. I think probably the biggest thing is they are balancing around Spectral Shields and the Angels having Ward 4 more than anything, but
Yeah.
that's a lot of prevention. So
I mean, I
um,
feel like it's still on theme too. Like, if you're playing a spellcaster, illusionist, wizard, you should probably have less base health, but can do more combat tricks or out of combat tricks, as they're called, as you would say.
didn't
So,
stop the first one, but we're gonna move on from the Prism just a little bit. We're gonna talk about this Bologna. I think that's how you say it. Bologna, Archangel of War.
Alana,
Sure. Bologna, Bellina, however you want to say it. She is an angel, a light angel ally. Now, something interesting about this is, unlike Soraya, which was a light illusionist ally, um, this angel is not illusionist. Um, and we also don't know how to summon it, right? We don't know how
yeah,
to
I was about to say
invoke
we've
it.
only seen the attack side, so we don't even
Yeah,
know if it requires like a spectral shield like the other one does
right.
right
We've
now.
seen the flip side. I'm gonna assume it doesn't need a spectral shield. It probably does something with soul, to be honest, because
Well, it would make the most sense because that's universal to light. So,
and I think this is the one that Bolton like cares about. Like he likes Bolton in the lore, or Bolton like worships this one in the war or in the lore. This is Wartune Herald, by the way. All the angels are heralds. Like when they're heralds, that's when they're a story. That's like when Prism's reading about them, and then these are like the angels, like apparently like actually coming out, which is kind of crazy. So, which doesn't make them really illusions at that point, or maybe they still are. I don't know. Maybe they're just stronger illusions. Besides the point,
it's a
tangent.
strong. Yeah, she's a strong one though. Like, there's no inherent way to give her go again. I think does Bolton's effect work
Well,
on?
so there is. I mean, Luminaris can give this go again.
No, no, no. I get that
The
one, but
new
like the
Luminaris.
thing is that like for because we know we can be using Bolton. Does Bolton's ability say that when a target attack has attack higher than its base, you can give it go again by banishing from soul?
I don't know. I think it does. Yeah, because it works on his weapon and cards, right? So
Yeah, and it doesn't, and you can work on generic cards too. So yeah, so I think that's how you can give it go again in Bolton at least,
yeah,
because her
as long as the attack is greater than its base, you can do that.
yeah, and her inherent ability, and this kind of synergizes with it being like Bolton related, is that when you attack, banish a card from her soul, and then put a
Yeah, you can
plus
give
one
it go
counter on
again.
all of your angels.
Yeah, you can give it go
So
again. So we see a bit of Angel Tribal, which is really cool. So yeah, Ryan just said her effect. When she attacks, you can banish a card from your hero soul. If you do, put a plus one counter on every angel you control. Also tells me that Bolton might be getting the ability to also summon more than one angel, which would be really cool. But it does have Ward 4, and it's a 4/4 ally, right? So 4 health and 4 attack. I think this card, we don't know how to summon it, so it could be really expensive, but I'm guessing it won't be. I don't know though. So It looks like we're getting more allies, and I actually really love allies, even though this isn't an ally-based game, but I really like
It
them.
makes them more special that way. The fact that it's not ally based, the fact that you get a few every now and then, that's like cool. That's cool.
The next card we're going to talk about is a really good one. It's a Guardian attack called Starstruck. It's a 7 cost attack, 10 damage, blocks for 3, pitches for 2. Interesting. It's a Bravo specialization. It says Crush. When this deals 4 or more damage to a hero, the only attacks they may play or activate during their next turn are attacks with base greater than the damage dealt this way. It also has Unity. When this defends together with a card from hand, create a Seismic Surge token under any number of heroes control. So this card is very good. Crushing with it is probably going to be very easy, especially with Bravo's ability. You know, it's a 7 cost attack, even without a Seismic Surge. That's 3 blues, means you can dominate this with Bravo's ability. And so it's coming in for 10 dominate, very difficult to block. Really pesky for a lot of the really go wide decks. Basically, if they don't block it, it turns off their turn. Very few decks are going to be able to get around, you know, even if you block for 3, it hits for 7. So then you can't play anything that has to be 8 or higher. They're just not going to be able to do that. Yeah, what do you think about this card, Starstruck?
Well, and it says attacks or that you play or activate, so
Yeah,
that means
includes
weapons
weapons.
too.
Yep.
Yeah, so literally, it's basically like another Spinal Crush in your deck when you're playing
That's a
Bravo.
good point.
It's basically just stopping go wide, whether it's because they defend with their entire hand to just not take the damage, or because when you dominate it, the Crush effect stops them from playing most cards that go wide decks play. So, yeah, this thing is pretty crazy. And then it
I think
has
it's really strong.
a new keyword that we got introduced to recently, Unity.
Yeah, Unity. So currently, the only way to really trigger Unity, it has to block with a card from hand. Like you have to block with this card and another card from your hand. So what I like about this is blocking with 2 cards feels really bad sometimes, right? And I really like this version of incentivizing blocking in a different way. Like you get a benefit for blocking. It's not as good of a benefit as if you had sent this attack, but sometimes you don't have that choice, right? And at least it gives you a little bit of a, hey, at least I got something out of blocking, right?
Yeah. And it's also the fact that it's a Bravo specialization, so that it synergizes with him specifically, and it's coming out in Dusk Till Dawn. Like, I think that's kind of cool that it seems like we're just getting a little bit more support than just the light and dark heroes. But
Yeah, I mean, I had figured.
Unity. I'm sorry.
No, I just said I had figured we were gonna get more than just light and dark, but yeah,
More than just, but I wasn't expecting specializations for other characters that weren't light and dark specifically.
can I just say,
Um,
like, weirdly enough, I love specializations. I think it just adds so much flavor to the game. It's like this is their ultimate, right? It's like
it's a
it's
bit
just,
of flavor that I feel like we don't get enough appreciation for from
yeah,
the past couple sets as much as we do with cards like these now,
yeah. It just like
in my opinion.
yeah. I mean, to me, it's like the perfect amount of like it just reminds me of like Flesh and Blood so much like a fighting game, right? And it just reminds me of like all the fighting games where you charge like the bar up to 3 and like even like Super Smash Brothers, right? Like your final smash, like it just reminds me of something like that where it's like this
Your
is
special move.
yeah, like specific to uh like your final smash is what I call it when you break the thing, right?
Yeah, Final
Yeah,
Smash.
yeah, yeah. So and it's like your big ultimate or whatever. So or even like League of
Mhm.
Legends, right? Something like that where it's like your big your R, your button. Like
Your grand finale.
this is the big one.
Hmm.
Um yeah, so I'm excited to see that. So speaking of cards with Unity, 2 more to go through them kind of quick. One is Chorus of Iron Song. This is a Dorinthia specialization, also pitches for 2, costs 1, blocks for 3, and it's a warrior attack reaction, Dory spec. And it reads, until end of turn, target Dawnblade gets +1, and damage this would deal can't be prevented. And of course, it has the Unity keyword as well. And its Unity is when this defends with together with a card from hand, create a Courage token under any number of heroes control. Now, the one thing we don't know is what a Courage token is just yet.
Yeah, this is the first. This is the one where we don't know what the bonus effect is, but I will say on the note of Unity, like unfortunately we don't know what Courage does, but I think we have a few guesses. But I like how it says under any number of heroes' control.
Oh,
So this
UPF
is obviously
baby.
kind of like repping for some PvE kind of action, I think.
PvE, not bad, but I really do just like this in UPF in the sense that like,
Yeah.
hey, I can give it to you. Leave me alone, buddy. Like,
Negotiation is going
yeah.
to be a key factor in the Ultimate Pit Fight, yes.
All right. As far as the actual effect, until end of turn, target Domblade gets +1 and damage this would deal can be prevented. What this really does, I think more than anything, because it's kind of bad on its face, right? It's a one cost
It's meh,
reaction, it's
yeah.
+1 and can't be prevented, and we're kind of losing the big preventer of damage right now, which is Oldhim. We'll talk about him later, but he's on his way out. Uh,
Well, except for Prism now.
well, no, I was getting there. So
Okay, okay, okay.
one of the big things is because the damage can't be prevented, the ruling is every spectral shield, like let's say they block you come in for 9 with Dawnblade. They block for 9. They don't have a D react, and you pump this by 1 with Chorus of Iron Song. So you're getting over for 1 damage. Normally that would be pretty terrible unless you're saving like a Dawnblade counter or getting a Dawnblade counter or something like that, right? Not good. Spending a card to do 1 damage is pretty terrible. However, the can't be prevented means that it eats every spectral shield. Or, even more so, recently, it'll eat every angel with ward. Because what happens is uh, they try to prevent it, trigger their effect, and because they can't, it just goes on to the next one. But they've all triggered their effect, so it'll just eat every single spectral shield and every single angel. So a prism or an illusionist, sometimes you make a spectral, not as often, but sometimes you make a spectral shield in Dromai. But they just have to be very careful and always have this kind of in the back of their mind that this could eat all of my spectral shields at any moment. At any moment.
Yeah, no, it's definitely it's there's some funny things that can happen with this. The future illusionists, prisms, and angel users have to watch out for this because it's like not even just for this particular one, but just as a side note, it's like other prevention effects might become a little more valuable suddenly, like Murkmire Grapnel when angels become more prevalent in the
You know,
future. So
a hundred
trying to get
percent.
those to.
And
Hmm?
what's really good, sorry to cut you off there, but what's really good about specifically when you say Murkmire Grapnel and Chorus of Ironsong, these effects, those are two heroes that have traditionally struggled in the illusionist matchup. And it's kind of
That's
cool
what I
that they're
was
getting,
originally thinking too.
yeah,
It's like it's almost giving them like a shot against illusionist in
right.
that sense.
Because like Dawnblade especially just had this really hard time into Spectral Shields.
It's
Against dragons, you can kind of try to farm them, and at least you're getting some value out of getting a counter. Even
yeah.
that's kind of a losing battle, but it's there. It's an option. It gives you a fighting chance. Um,
Hmm.
when it came to Spectral Shields, it was just a nightmare because Prism has uh, Soul Shield, which is the really big defense reaction, plus Spectral Shields, plus any other. It was really difficult for Domblade to ever get in, no matter how big it got, even if it had Dominate. So
Yep.
interesting to see
So
that. So,
giving it at least this one card is kind of nice.
100%. All right, so now we have one more card with Unity that we took over that we've gotten. It's called Alluring Inducement. This was one of the first arts that was spoiled, and people speculated that this was Shiana. Well, you were right, because it is a Shiana specialization.
Oh,
It
that's right. This art was spoiled early on. I
it cost
completely forgot about
yeah,
that as soon as it got revealed.
it costs 2, pitches for 2, attacks for 2, and defends for 2. This is the 2 card. But it is a Shiana specialization, which is also kind of funny because you can play any specialization, so it's like funny in my head that like, whatever. uh, it does say when this attacks, the defending hero reveals their hand. So important to note, it's not a hit trigger. It just says when it attacks. When this attacks, the defending hero reveals their hand. You may choose an attack action card revealed this way. If you do, this becomes the chosen card. That's insane already. But Unity, when this defends together with a card from hand, create an Eloquence token under any number of heroes' control. Interesting enough, we actually do know what an Eloquence does. It's a token that says when you play a non-attack action card, destroy this and the card gets go again. We'll get to Eloquence in a second because I think that's insane. But first, we're gonna go into Alluring Inducement. What do you think about this card, Ryan?
I think it's hilarious. Imagine going up against a Bravo and not only being able to play his specializations normally, but just looking at his hand and playing Crippling Crush for 2. That's pretty wild.
I agree. What I would be interested to know the ruling of, because you just brought it up. What if you copy Bravo, become Bravo, activate his ability, and then play this card, and now this card is actually a Crippling Crush. Does it have Dominate?
You're talking about the timing for when it would be given dominates based on when it comes into the field or when its effect resolves, right?
Just wondering if it like looks at, because like there's like the whole argument versus printed cost, which is 2 versus like it's not even this card anymore. It became the other card. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
I almost wonder if that's kind of like the same ruling as what's her face? Uzuri with cards just suddenly coming into play rather than being played.
It would be
You know what I mean?
interesting to know. Either way, I mean, I think becoming any attack in the game for 2. Now, this can whiff.
At
uh,
least it still hits for 2.
Against certain heroes, it can whiff. Yeah, which it will hit for 2. 2 for 2 is a really bad rate. Um, but on the other hand, something you should know is you'd get perfect knowledge of your opponent's hand, which I think in Flesh and Blood against certain heroes is huge. Like you mentioned, Zuri, any assassin knowing what reactions they're working with, is massive. So you do get perfect knowledge of that turn of their hand. Now this is a Shiana specialization. Currently, Shiana's only in Blitz. Blitz, however you feel about Blitz. Some people think it's really competitive. Some people want to leave it casual, but it is a as for now, it's only a Blitz card. So I don't know. I think it's really good. And of course, that Unity, just giving any, and especially like in UPF or even like you said, PvE, giving anyone an Eloquence token, I think is really strong.
I mean, giving everyone a tome of Findel with Go again,
Yeah,
freaking wild, dude.
yeah.
It's basically just it's the quicken of non-attack action cards.
Yes,
It's
if
so good.
depending on how and who can make Eloquence tokens, like whatever cards create them, um, is massive. That's a massive implication. I think out of all the cards we're going to talk about in this little episode, I think Eloquence tokens are one of the most impactful. I mean,
Yeah. And
uh,
especially because we don't
yeah,
know how it's going to be made regularly, whether it's going to be like maybe this is a Shiana thing for now, but like if it becomes a generic token like Quicken was, then like how you can create that could be as valuable as how people can try and gain a gold token or silver tokens for
I was waiting,
cash in or something.
was waiting for
You know what I
something
mean?
like Flock of the Feather Walkers, but it's like Flock of the Eloquence Walkers. And like you have to like somehow like reveal something to get an Eloquence token instead of a Quicken token. I don't know. But
It could
yeah,
be just a generic Majestic we get in this set that creates an Eloquence token, to be honest. Which, to be honest, actually sounds like it wouldn't be too far fetched. Just some generic Majestic that creates an Eloquence token under specific conditions for you to use the next turn, something like that.
yeah,
That'd be pretty good.
100%. But yeah, no, I'm excited for it. I mean, if a wizard can make it, becomes really stupid. If a illusionist can make it, it becomes really stupid. Uh,
Now
like
here we go. It's gonna be the Fabled, dude. Pitch this, create an Eloquence token.
that
Boom.
would be,
$10,000
mm,
card.
yeah, that would be like actually not okay. Like, I already have my qualms
You're
with
right, you're right.
fables.
Unless it was maybe red, but that's terrible pitch wise.
I already have my qualms with fables. If that's what it did, I'd be like, this is not okay. Um, all right, so moving
Oh
on,
my goodness.
we have 2 weapons to talk about real quick. Let's go with the first one, being Luminaris Celestial Fury. This one's kind of a lot of people, this got spoiled and people were kind of underwhelmed by it, but I think there's some nuance to it. I think it's good. So, uh, art is awesome. First of all, it does look really good, but its
Definitely.
effect is it is a light illusionist weapon, sceptered two-handed, just like Luminaris was. Uh, Once per turn instant, pay 2, target angel attack or attack action card with Herald in its name gets go again. and that's it. That's all it does.
Yeah. To be
uh,
fair, though, it's like on demand go again for normally big attacks or angel attacks for God knows what else the other ones will do. Soraya already has life leech, which is insane,
yeah,
in my opinion.
one thing to note, what it doesn't do is it doesn't turn your auras into weapons at all. Which, as we talked about,
That
might have
part
been,
is kind of big compared to what we're used to.
yeah, even if it didn't have the go again on it, like for the auras, like for some reason, like auras not being able to attack just feels so much worse because I'm so used to it.
Play Iris of Reality, baby. It's still there.
It's still there. Could pay what, three, four?
You pay a blue to attack for 4 with go again.
Ah,
Yeah.
it's so bad. But yeah,
Give and takes.
yeah. So one thing I do like about this card is it's an instant, not a reaction. So what you can do, you can get all the way to like the on hit effect, so you can know if the uh if the attack hit or not, right? You don't have to like hope it doesn't get popped or something. Like I don't know if like usually in reactions it can't get popped anyway, but just saying like you know it's already hit and you know at this point whether or not you want to give it go again or not. I think that's really strong to give it go again like in that window.
Yeah, especially since the window's kind of easy to trigger because whenever any of the heralds hit, for example, they trigger to go into soul, so you can do it in response to that.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. You can do it before the herald actually goes in your soul, so it will get go again.
Hmm.
Very good. Yeah, I mean, another thing to note, I just read it. Oh, it is once per turn. I was gonna say it's not once per turn, but it's like literally the first words on the card. So
I'll be honest, I wouldn't be too upset if it wasn't a once per turn just because it costs 2 to even activate,
it's
and I
very
don't think
expensive.
Prism's gonna have that much stuff in their hands because even the angel attacks like Soraya and the new one, Balana, they both cost 2 to attack initially as well, so they're
Well,
not cheap.
yeah. Let's move on to what I think is the more interesting of the two weapons. Not because I am excited for Vincent. Actually, if Runeblades never appeared in Flesh and Blood again, I wouldn't be upset about it. But anyway, I do think this weapon is very interesting. So Flail of Agony is a Vincent specialization. So Shiana, you get a weapon now. That's not Talishar, which is interesting.
Oh
But
my gosh, that's one thing I didn't even think about was the weapon being a specialization.
so Vincent specialization. Once per turn action, pay a life and attack. And it's a one attack weapon. And when it hits, create a rune chant token, which is interesting because rune gating, which I think I'll just go over now because I think it's relevant.
Yeah,
So,
I'm pretty sure that's the intended like what's the word I'm looking for? Synergy
like,
with
yeah, it's
this
synergy.
attack.
So rune gating is specific to Vincent. It's kind of they spoiled it a little bit and they kind of put it in her story. But the mechanic is it's on a lot of the probably on a lot of our Shadow Runeblade cards. We have one card with it, but I'm sure we'll get more. But rune gating says if you control rune chants equal to or greater than the attack's resource cost, you may play it from your banish zone without paying its resource cost. So the card we got is Phantom Banshee. It costs 3, so if you have 3 or more rune chants, then you can actually play this from banish with no cost. Uh,
Which is insane for a 7 damage and red like attack. And the fact that, if you want to do more damage, just make more rune chants and play this for free. That's so wild.
so we are getting, believe we already know we're getting an adult Vin set. So I think it's really interesting that not only will she have to contend with blood debt, she'll also have to contend with her flail hurting her. Now, that is on the off chance that she doesn't just play Rosetta Thorn because it's still legal, and for whatever reason it's not elemental. um, but
Can I
that
say something to that real quick?
sure.
So I think that the fact that this weapon is a specialization, has rune chance even built into its attack, and even has like a cost for health, I would be very surprised if this time there wasn't a design space in this weapon itself that made it so that playing anything but this, at least for the time being, would be kind of like a significant cut to your like
I think
play style, if that makes sense.
well, the only thing I'll say is that they'll have to make rune gating really strong. And
Like,
and the reason I say that is because one, we already saw in Phantom Banshee like needing three rune chants even with two flails of agony feels like it's going to be difficult. Because
yeah.
one flail will trigger the other flail rune chant anyway, so it's like difficult to like pile them up, if you know what I mean.
No, of
Uh,
course, of
yeah.
course. And I'm not
So
saying it should be easy,
no, no,
quote
no. But
unquote,
what
but
I'm saying
like,
is you have
oh yeah.
to. We don't know how. We don't know how she's gonna banish the card, right? Obviously, like I really think her hero ability is gonna probably have something to do with banishing cards, but we don't know. We don't know if she'll make soul shackles or what. However, she'll banish the card. Um,
There are a few cards that thankfully already do it for
no, I
us
know we
through
have
different
shadow
things.
puppetry and others that are
Shadow
not.
of Verser.
Yeah, not coming to mind. But I get that. But what I'm saying is like even then, that seems difficult to me to if you're like planning your whole game plan around that, around those specific
Mhm.
cards. But my point is like we'll just
Yeah.
need you also have to look at this in the fuller context of like having every other blood deck card that doesn't have the rune gate restriction. Not that there's a restriction. Like you can still just play the Phantom Banshee, but like it has to be better than Seeds of Agony, has to be better than Riftbind, has to be better than like you know what I mean? Like Seeds of Agony will be legal. Riftbind is
Yeah.
legal. Like all these other really good play from banish cards are legal. So just something to think about.
No, of course, and we don't know for sure until it comes out, but I
Oh,
give them credit for their design. Like we complimented them at the beginning. Their design space has been really on point for a lot of characters, and I'd be surprised if this wasn't like with a return to Shadow Rune Blade, like if this wasn't also on point with what they're
oh,
going to give us.
something
Hopefully.
else to note with the Rune Gate cards is you can't play them from banish normally, like you can the other blood deck cards. So if you have this in your banish zone and you don't have three rune chants, you're not playing this card. There's no other option to. So all the other blood deck cards say you may play this from your banish zone, like flat out. This only has rune gate, which says you have to pay it from your banish zone without paying its cost, like through rune gating. So that's just something else to recognize. So hopefully she'll have some crazy ways to generate rune chants. I mean, we still have uh like she has her flail. We have who knows if that's even the way she'll play it. She might even have there might even be a world where she plays Nebula Blade. Who knows? Um,
That would be interesting. Yeah. We don't know.
I'd rather see a Nebula Blade than a Rosetta Thorn at this point.
Same. Same.
But she'll have Revel, like Revel and Runeblood. So, it could lead to some really big rune gatey turn with Revel. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
because if you banish like a non-attack too that has Rune Gate, and then this, and they have like power creep that's like wild for the costs that they would normally have, like yeah, I could see it being really powerful.
I agree. I agree.
I'm
So that
excited. I'm excited for Vincent, and I just want to throw this out there. If for nothing else, then because she's got like the Iron Maiden thing going on,
yeah,
which I think is
especially
awesome.
in the adult art that we saw too. So, um,
Yeah, it was weird. It looked like there was like webbing coming out of her mouth or something too,
it's
which is
like she's
like,
been chilling for so long. Maybe she's like an old one or whatever, an ancient one or something like that.
or
Uh,
maybe she has spider powers. We don't know.
so that's all the cards we have to talk about. We do have a couple more topics we want to go back into. So something you may have noticed is I'm back. We're making a podcast. I am excited to be back. I just want to go over that a little bit. I took a break. I kind of want to talk about burnout just a little bit. So me personally, we've been playing Flesh and Blood since 2019, since the game came out. I was probably 2 weeks away, like too late to have a four-digit gem ID number. Not salty at all, but uh, but yeah, I've been playing pretty hardcore. We've been to almost every single major event in the States. Uh, every Nats, every Worlds was here, both at the Pro Tours that were in the States, almost every calling, and just kind of, getting to the point where 4 years in, it was just a little bit of burnout, I think. And I think it's important to know just if you're out there, it's okay, right? Like, no matter how passionate you are about something, you're probably gonna eventually suffer from a little burnout. especially like the more passionate you are. The point is, like, if you need to take a break, I think it's good to take a break. I took a little bit of a break from Flesh and Blood. I kind of felt like bad about it because we have the channel, we have the team, and but I think it was healthy because I think I just needed it. It's a game we play for fun, but sometimes you just get so into it. I think it's just good to talk about a little bit, just, keeping it fun, you know?
You can say you play for fun, but at the end of the day, like we also play because we want to participate in those big events too, or we want to feel like we're there's more to it even when you say you play for fun than just playing for fun sometimes. And it's okay that you have those ambitions in mind too, but also taking a break every now and then is kind of good for you as well. I agree.
Yeah, and I think at this point what I want to do is I want to get to a point where I'm really proud of the content that I'm making, that we're making as a team. I think we're doing that. I think starting this podcast kind of like from zero a little bit, I think is really helpful. This is kind of like what I like doing. We talk about card games so much, just why not record it and get our thoughts on paper or on paper, you know what I mean? Like on tape. Uh, and post it out there. If people like to hear us talk, and I just think people like have a thirst for content, and I like this is probably like my favorite part of it, and I really like competing as well. And I want to get to the point where not only am I making content, again that we're making content that we're really proud of, but then also when we go to these events, we're really proud of our performance, regardless of win-loss record, right? So when I say that, I mean like of course I want to win as much as possible, but I'm saying like at least when we do lose, that we went in knowing that we prepared what we could. We weren't unprepared. We had a game plan, and whether or not we executed that game plan, but we know what we were doing going in. So yeah, I just think
Yeah.
I'm excited for the future. Sticking
Yeah,
with
and
Flesh
just
and
to
Blood.
go over kind of my story with that just recently, I'm sure you kind of picked up on it when I was talking in the chat after Saturday, during some recent events where well, recent Road to Nats, and we have some things to talk about that too in a second. But in my Road to Nats experience, my first two events that I went to where I didn't make top eight didn't feel bad because I felt like I was gaining some experience that I felt comfortable with doing better the next time. But then after this past weekend, man, something about it just like it took me
Yeah.
it took me off my what's the word I'm looking for? It took me off my balance, and it was kind of like the point where I feel like, okay, this is the point where the competitive has overtaken kind of like the fun aspect of it, and I need to
Yeah.
kind of step back from it just for a second.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a balance to be struck there, especially like, but and I kind of get it. When you go to an RTN, there's a bit of a different feeling than when you go to an armory, right? So,
You want to win because you want to participate in those events, and these are the only chances you have to do that. That comes outside of like either grinding experience points, and you still have to win in those events too to get the experience points,
right.
or some other method. But it's the main method that people see to participate in these extra events, and
Yeah,
it's
and
part of the game that we
something you
want to play
mentioned
more.
just now that I think is really interesting to talk about, and something that we've seen in our locals, and I hope this kind of spreads to any other area that may be struggling, because this kind of been something that in the Central Florida area where we play, what we've noticed is that there's been new, a lot less new player growth, right? And any new player we have gotten is kind of been difficult to stick, right? It's kind of been they come out, they play for a week or two, they say, "Oh, the game's fun, but it's not for me. It's either too expensive or it's too hardcore. Like I just get my face smashed in, and it's not really fun. I'll go back to whichever game I was playing that I was already good at, or something like that, either Magic or One Piece or whatever."
Yeah.
So something that I think is happening that I think is going to be really good is that a lot of our local armories are choosing to do a casual night or two, and I'm really excited for it, actually. Speaking of what we were just speaking about, I think that'll really help with things like burnout because I'm really excited to play UPF. I've played exactly 2 games of UPF, two, two. But
They were
both of the,
fun. They were fun.
but both of those games were probably in my top 5 most fun games of Flesh and Blood I've ever played. We were joking, laughing, having so much fun. Doing a little bit of the politicking, like leave me alone, I'll leave you alone, things like that. But and even being
We
under
were we weren't even playing the stupid cards like shitty Xmas present either. We
no,
was
we
playing with We were playing with our Blitz decks,
W-
but
w-
like just all together,
Yeah,
and
we.
suddenly it became a whole different experience.
It's funny. We had our competitive blitz decks that we brought to, actual competitive blitz events, and it was after the events were over, in between. I think for Worlds is where we played the first one.
Yep, yep.
We were in between like events, in between side events or something, and we all had a blitz deck, and we are like, "Do you much want to play UPF?" And everyone like looked at me, and I was like,
It was great. It was a good choice.
and I was like, "Let's just do it." And it was like one of the most fun games we've ever played. We were laughing the whole time. Like,
Yeah, no, it was great.
and the other time was at the store, and you won on Icelander, and even being under channel like Frigid for the whole table. It was still a fun time. It was hilarious. So
I think at least when you're under Channel Lake Frigid together, it feels like you can warm each other's hearts.
whatever. I'm definitely playing some Imperial Warhorn next UPF game I play. I'm actually building a UPF deck that's specific
Not
to
even
UPF.
terrible considering it affects every player.
Exactly. Um, so yeah, I'm really excited for locals to start hosting those casual nights. Uh, and I don't want it to completely replace competitive CC at our locals either. I just think it's a good. You need like a break and like to
Well,
laugh sometimes.
I think it's also good as an introductory level events for newer players, better a little more official than Commoner was, because the stores had to choose to run Commoner, for example, and that was a good way to introduce players to the game without worrying about pricing.
I
Um,
I think, sorry, I want to interject a little bit just because I have strong feelings about Commoner. So I think you are right that it is cheap. I do not think it is a good new player format at all. If if you have other competitive players there, it is easily spiked and kind of broken.
that is true. That is true. But what I'm
um,
trying to say is that
yeah.
when you get the reason why getting players to stick around for just a little while longer with this new game than other games is that Flesh and Blood is so wildly different from other card games in the pacing. You don't feel like you have just dead hands regularly, or you don't feel like you lost because you just had like a dead hand with things you can't play. The way Flesh and Blood's core mechanics work is that you always feel like you have fresh decisions you can make on a turn by turn basis without feeling like you're setting up the same trying to set up the same board state every turn. And I think if players stick with it long enough to realize how much better that is, it's going to be hard for them to leave the game once they get a taste of that, to be honest. Cuz like I have a hard time going back to other games, even the older games that I played before this,
Hmm.
after playing Flesh and Blood, cuz like I experienced those dead hand situations. I experienced those watching my opponent pop off while I'm sitting there waiting for something situations, and I'm like, wow, this is what I really missed about Flesh and Blood, was that this wasn't how it happened.
So I will say, like the other game we cover on this channel, the other game I'm really into is Grand Archive, going to Ascent Houston. Um, I think there's room for other games. The only thing is, I will say is, I wish Flesh and Blood LSS just did more to onboard new players at this point. It feels like it is completely on the community slash LGS to get those new players on board, and I haven't really seen a whole lot. Flesh and Blood does competitive play better than any other TCG, bar none, period, full stop, end of story. They have a new player problem, and I know that is contradictory to a lot of what you see. I think, of course, in a lot of other parts of the world, you're seeing like those, especially Japan. So that's like I follow a lot of the Japan Twitter accounts for Flesh and Blood, and they're blowing up. But you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Central Florida 3 years ago, where we were blowing up. We were hosting 25, 30 person armories. We were hosting RTNs with 60 people, 70 people. We were hosting ProQuest, the first ProQuest, with like 50, 60 people. What's happened is we've dwindled down our player base, just through normal attrition. Players come and go, they move, they find something else. But what we haven't seen is those newer players that, trickle back in. And I think LSS has not really done themselves favors at this point. And I hope, it's like a cry for help. Please, like, do something, like either like demo kits for stores outside of the IR deck, something that's like truly like, hey, come to the store, and you get a special promo if you learn how to play. something. I don't know anything. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it should be. Uh, dedicated learn to play days that are like hosted by LSS, something like that. I think that would go a long way, just to show that they're looking into it, caring about the new player. Uh, hold on, Ryan. You there, Ryan? Hello?
AJ?
Hello?
Hello.
Dude, my shit's just said like memory error. I mean, the recording's still going.
Okay.
That was really
Well,
weird.
you were in the middle of your rant about
My
introducing new
rant.
players.
Thank you. My rant. Whatever, Ryan.
No, it's good. No, rant is not inherently bad. Okay. Your discussion then about bringing in new players.
Okay. I just I fixed it.
LSS needs to get on board with onboarding
Yeah, I
properly.
mean that's all I was saying is that I just hope that LSS does something to specifically entice new players to come learn the game, get entrenched in the game. I think the one product I think really had a shot was the classic battles deck. I think if that deck to me was a CC ready deck, two CC ready decks that was like 30 to 40 bucks and preferably 30, and you
Preferably, yeah.
give them like one cold foil each as opposed to two, I think it was. So
Yeah.
make the hero cold foil and then give them like a rainbow foil or two, knock the price down, figure it out, and give them a rule book. That was wild to me too, is that it didn't come with a rule book.
Yeah.
It came with
Kind
like
of
a
hard to call it an intro product or a welcoming
yeah,
product
it
when
came
it's
with a link to like, and I get it. We're in 2023. Everyone has a phone. Like you can scan a QR code, go to the rules page, but I just really think like just a rule book, just a basic how to play, like like a turn sequence or something like that would be really good. But that's all.
even the Ira decks included like a little thing in the back
Yeah,
to
even
tell
if
you
it
how to
was that
play.
exact same thing, and we learned how to play off those things. So I mean, not great, but like we learned how to play.
Yeah.
All right. So
But no, yeah, I think if LSS works a little bit more on that, the game hooks people once they feel how different it is from the other card games, in my opinion. Um, Not the other card games are bad at that point, but like Flesh and Blood doesn't feel like you get
yeah,
bogged down by certain playstyles, or like trying to set up certain strategies every time, or even like I said, just as simple as like dead hands. Like not experiencing that regularly in a card game like feels so good.
100%. And so that all being said, a little bit of news. We're gonna just hit a little bit. We'll just go quick hits. Looks like Briar's here to stay. Current rate of LL points through RTN season. She's gonna finish like 20 away. Just hilarious. So Rosetta Thorn's here for another season, at least.
Yeah.
And Oldham did reach Living Legend. So July 3rd, I think, is the next BNR announcement. He will be gone. Out of Flesh and Blood, out of Classic Constructed. He already LL'd out of Blitz some time ago, so he will be not legal for play. No Elemental Guardian until we get a new one, or we get whatever they decide to call Living Legend format, which I'm excited for in a way, uh, but only if nothing's banned and only if you can play everything. And when I say every, I mean like current stuff too. Like it's like not just the living legend heroes, like everything.
Yeah, like anything, everything that's banned is unbanned, basically.
Yeah. So
At least we get Pulse of Loft back now.
I think between the spoilers, casual nights, LL points, RTN season. Oh, one last thing. I'm really enjoying Azalea. Azalea was actually I said earlier in this podcast, Prism was my first love. You can attest to this. When we were first building those very first, like Arcane Rising was coming out, when we were finally constructing our own decks, I was on that Azalea train very hard. Um,
Yeah, you were on Azalea a little bit more than Mech. You were still on Mech too, but like yeah, you
I
were
don't.
making sure to get both of
I
them.
think I got the mech cards, but I can't even tell you that I built a mech deck. Other than
You
like,
did. We went up. We tested Viscerai versus Mech, and you decked yourself out.
oh, I do remember that was Blitz. They had just they had so Crucible War had come out. They had just created
No, no, no. I'm
Blitz.
talking about before Crucible. Like we had just opened Arcane Sword
No, I don't
recently.
think that's true. I don't think so. Because I kind of remember this because I remember getting mad because like, oh, it's Blitz or something like that. So I ran out of cards faster.
Oh, maybe.
I'm pretty sure because I don't, and it doesn't really matter. The point is like Azalea was like the first deck I like really loved, and then I would realize like, oh, this deck's terrible at the time. Like it was really
No.
difficult to play compared to like Dory and Viserai and Mech and everything that was good at the time, and it was just
Yeah, but
difficult.
no, no. Ranger has always been fun, even to me. I thought it's an interesting class. It has a lot of cool moving parts to try and like optimize like a really good hand. Or just a really good play in general. So I've always thought Ranger was interesting, if not a little hindered by a few design factors that, while
Yeah,
not value wise, like not resource or free resource or value wise, it makes them worse than other class. But when you just play it out as opposed to on paper, it makes it kind of like
yeah,
a
and
little
she
harder.
she always felt like a toolbox to me, right? Like I always like kind of pictured like, and she's almost like this now. It's where um when I think of like Ranger in like a fantasy setting, I think of like a you have like a bunch of different arrows all for different situations, kind of like Hawkeye.
Yeah,
Less technology, right? But still, like
yeah,
you have like this is for bringing down like trolls, and this is for bringing down like wolves, and this is for bringing down like bandits or whatever, like different arrows
yeah,
for different situations. And they kind of nailed it. I think if anything good came out of Outsiders for me, which I wasn't really excited about as a set, to be completely honest, it's just not my aesthetic typically, but um, and the classes they supported aren't classes I typically play, so it was kind of like, eh. But Azalea and the way she plays now, I'm really enjoying it. So good job. That's all.
yeah.
Lots of positivity this podcast. I like it.
No, yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back to some
Doing
more of the local play now that the Road to Nat season is kind of finishing off. I think there's like one more weekend of events right now, but then it's gonna go back to the local scene for a while until we actually have. Is the next major event nationals? Like
Yeah.
that's just the next.
No, yeah, and US Nats is really coming up quick. We'll cover it. We'll definitely talk about it. But
Yeah,
US Nats is at the end of August, which is the first one, I think. It's really early in that national season, so it'll be interesting to see. It has a calling attached to it, and just be a lot of fun. I'm
yeah.
super
I'd like to
excited.
still go to it even if I don't get a Nats invite this weekend, but it is in Las Vegas, which is
It's a little difficult to get to right now from Florida.
yeah, it's got a lot going on with it in terms of Las Vegas in general. But I'm sure the flesh and blood part of it will still be fine.
Well, I think it's a really good time to be a Flesh and Blood player. I'm really excited for Dust Till Dawn.
Yeah, me
I'm
too.
really
Me too.
excited that in 2024 we go to 4 draft sets, at least 3 draft sets, 4 sets a year. Uh, I think it's a really good time to be a Flesh and Blood player. I'm really excited to make content for it. And if you guys can, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell whenever we go live. So on this channel, we do Flesh and Blood content like you're seeing now, and we do a lot of Grand Archive content. So if you're into any of those two games, I think those games actually have a lot of overlap. A lot of the Grand Archive players that I know are also Flesh and Blood players. So make sure you subscribe for a lot of good content for both games, including gameplay coming up soon. So that's all I got from me,
Yeah.
Ryan. Any last words? before we
Yeah,
end
I
it.
can't wait to finally get some more Levia support now in Dusk Till Dawn.
I hope you're right. I hope we get some.
We're gonna get some generic shadow stuff at least, and I'm sure some of it will be helpful, okay? At the very least.
And on that note, Ryan will keep believing. We are out of here. Peace.
Later.